Let's go ahead and do a call to order and roll call, please. Yvette, are you with us yet?
Yvette, you're on mute.
I am here, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and do a call to order and roll call, please.
Commissioner Burling?
Actually, I did that already, Yvette. I asked for a roll call, please. She said Commissioner Burling. I think so.
Commissioner Burling? Oh, yeah, here. I am here, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and do a call to order and roll call, please.
Commissioner Burling?
Actually, I did that already, Yvette. I asked for a roll call, please.
What's the deal?
Hi.
It's taped.
Maybe we just use paper and a pencil.
In the old days.
Like the old days, good old days.
How come she doesn't come in here? It is easier when she's here.
I wanted her to set up in here, but we couldn't get that far.
Preferring to be there.
Can you guys hear me?
Can now.
Yes, but there's like a
Okay,
30 seconds.
so I'm gonna do the roll call.
Okay.
Try again.
All right, Commissioner Burling,
Here.
Vice Chair Myers,
Here.
Commissioner Sowers,
Here.
Oh, I don't have my.
thank you.
Let's go ahead and stand up, do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's have, we're going to start out with our public appearances. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names so that they may be identified in the meetings, in the minutes of the meeting. So with that being said, I'll open it up here in the chamber if anyone from the public here that's present would like to speak. Nope. Okay, and then I'll take it online, and I see Ramy. Hello there, Amy.
Hello. I just wanted, this is Ramy Allard with Friends of Carmel Forest. I wanted to give the report that we had an extremely successful tree walk. It started in Devendorf Park on Saturday, July 2nd. We had 2 groups of 25 people, and we actually had to turn people away because the groups were so big. We were worried that we couldn't move through the town without causing traffic problems and such. But we had a great speaker. He was lively and energetic and had lots of wonderful things to say about Carmel and their trees, and he's going to help us going forward with discussing about trees that we may consider as replacement trees to diversify our forest a bit. And I just felt that it was a really, really great turnout. I was happy to see that many people interested in our trees. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Ramy. That was I was actually out of town. I was sad to miss it, but I'm even glad to hear that I didn't take someone else's spot if it was full. Let's see. Anyone else from the public care to make an appearance? I'm not seeing any additional hands. So with that, I'm going to close public appearances and then move into the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and/or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. So the first item on the consent agenda is to approve the June 9th, 2022 meeting minutes. Was there any questions about the meeting minutes? If not, okay, so we have a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We have a second.
If
Yvette,
I
do you?
could just
Thanks, sorry.
remind everyone to please speak directly into your microphone because I didn't hear Sarah. And if she could
Okay,
say that
sorry.
again, please. Okay. If you could go ahead and say your motion again for approval.
Just make the motion.
I move we accept the minutes from the June 9th meeting.
Okay, perfect.
And
And I heard-
I second those
Thank you,
meeting
Brian.
minutes.
All right. Commissioner Burling,
Yes. You're actually yes or no right now.
Say yes or no.
Yes. I
Vice
can't
Chair
actually
Myers?
pick up what you said.
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has passed.
Thanks. Yvette, is there a way to just adjust your volume in here at all? I think it's, Commissioner Burling was saying she's having difficulty
Yeah.
hearing it, and I could understand that's a little muffled.
Yeah, I'm at a different location right now,
That's
so
better.
not a regular setup with a microphone and everything, but I will do my best to speak louder. if
Okay, I
that's
think
any
our
better.
forester actually clicked a couple buttons and helped us out, so.
Yvette, just speak
Okay.
like when you speak to me.
Bob Ferrari, watch yourself.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right. So we have, we have under announcements in the consent agenda, it's sub A, which is the nomination and appointment of chairperson and vice chairperson. So I'm going to turn that over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me kind of give a little bit of background here before we get into the nomination and appointment process. As you commissioners have heard, Commissioner Darlene Mosley resigned a couple of weeks ago. I got a note from the city clerk. We have a new city clerk, Nova Romero, who started about less than a month ago. She's aware that one commissioner, Cadell, has term timed out, and that Commissioner Mosley had to resign. So there's 2 vacancies at this point. We do know that there was one round of interviews by the mayor and pro tem, but no person was recommended by that subcommittee to the council. So there's no appointments as of yet. Since that period of time, no additional members of the public have applied since that period of time, which is about a month ago. Nova will be advertising for a new batch of applications soon and starting the process again. So we'll just have to keep you posted on that. And with that, I'd recommend that the commissioners nominate and appoint a chairperson and a vice chairperson. JC is Myers is the acting, or you were the vice chair, so you were the acting chair up until this point of the meeting. But at this point, all 3 members are equally eligible to serve as chair or vice chair. So it's really up to you
I
guys.
move that JC continue as chairman.
I second that motion.
Okay, thanks. I would move that Sarah steps in as the vice chair, considering our terms are running correlation, so.
Yeah, same time, okay.
Agreed, second.
Yvette, does that require a roll call?
I believe that I have to do a roll call for each one. So let's go ahead and do the chair first.
Are you asking?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So Sarah, you move for JC to stay as chair or to become chair?
Yes.
And I second that, yes, Brian.
And I'm going to third it.
So Yvette, you'll call the roll for that,
Yes, I'll do that.
okay?
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers,
Yes.
Chair Mosley? Myers, I'm sorry. Chair
Yes.
Myers. Thank you. That motion has passed.
And does someone want to make a motion
Then
for vice chair?
I'll go ahead and make the motion for Commissioner Burling to step in the role of the vice chair.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Chair Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion is passed.
Okay, congratulations to the new chair and vice chair.
Nice work.
And-
Okay, so let's-
And the alternate.
So, and again, just because it was clarified for me, just for my fellow commissioners, we are the quorum. If any one of us don't come to a meeting, the meeting will not be a valid Forest and Beach Commission meeting. Is that
Right.
correct, Yvette?
That is correct. We would have to cancel that meeting.
Cancel that meeting. Okay. Thank you.
So we need to do some recruiting. Tell all your friends.
Exactly.
All right, well, we'll continue with the consent agenda. At this time, we're going to open up to public hearings. The first of the public hearings that we'll hear is the approval or denial of a tree pruning permit at the northeast corner of Junipero Street and 8th Avenue. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our forester, Forester Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I get my technology all in order here. Oh, someone did it for me. All right, our applicant, Wendy Fink, who owns the property at the northeast corner of Junipero Street and 8th Avenue, has applied to prune a large oak on her property that is coming in contact with her existing carport. She would like to remove a limb that would constitute over 50% of the entire tree. It looks as though it would be very possible to alter the structure of the carport in order to retain the tree. So you can see here, at some point, there had been made a notch into the fascia of the carport and a notch into the tree, and you can see that the tissue of the tree has started to callus over. So that had happened quite a long time ago. So let's see. So my recommendation is to deny the application. You can see here on the right, that would be the limb that would be removed. And she has paid the application fee for the permit. And that's about it. Does anyone have any questions?
Anyone from the commission have any questions for the forester?
My only question, Sarah, is when we were on site visiting, it looked like they had an application or a permit requirement for a roof remodel or a roof redo. So there's the possibility that something could be done to this carport to at least mitigate some of the bump that it's currently on that oak tree, given the fact that they're redoing a whole new roof structure?
This is my understanding that the permit is to re-roof, re-shingle the existing carport.
Okay.
If I may add to that, in the staff report, it does recommend that the applicant consult with the carpenter, because we do believe there's a number of possible modifications to the carport to allow for that limb to remain.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Then do we have the applicant online or present?
She is not in the room presently.
Okay, and Yvette, do we know if she happens to be on
Here.
Zooming up with us or on the phone?
I don't see her. There is a number with no name.
The 415?
The 40, there's a couple then.
There's
The
408.
415 and 408.
Got it. Is it Finky? Fink? Ms. Fink, if you're on the line, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, since the applicant's not here, then And we'll start the 3-minute clock for public
Great.
testimony.
Okay, well, so in a matter of just time, we'll go ahead and open it up to any public comment or questions, I suppose, regarding this application. And if you would like to speak, then we'd appreciate it if you share your name with us. You don't have to, but there'll be a 3-minute time frame for an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone from the public that would care to speak to this application? Okay, I don't see anyone expressing any interest, so I'm going to close that, bring it back to the commission for discussion, and then put it over to the two of you. Where are we here?
I'm at this point, given what I've seen and the fact that they're going to be doing a new roof situation, I'd like to some be in agreement with the forester about denying the application, unless for whatever reason the applicant could potentially come up with something that makes a lot of sense around their remodel of the roof line that makes it impossible without the tree situation being resolved.
But that was a separate that's a separate building. The garage, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's
so
carport.
they were doing the roof of the house, is that it?
No, just the
just the
carport.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't seem that that's besides the fact that would the tree live if it lost over half of its being?
It is my professional opinion that the tree would go into rapid decline and most likely wouldn't survive for more than 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right, well, I'm definitely in agreement with both of you in regards to the position we take on this. I think that you look at that piece of property, that actually is a beautiful tree on the property, and the limb that is being requested to remove would butcher that tree and honestly take away from the true beauty of that piece of property. So I'd make a motion to approve the forester's recommendation to deny the permit application.
And I second that. You bet.
You bet.
I'm here. I'm sorry, because I'm not in my regular location, it's just a little bit more complicated.
It's okay,
All
we're
right.
fine.
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Chair Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has passed.
Okay, thank you. So moving on in the consent agenda and public hearings, we have the approval or denial of a tree removal permit at San Carlos Street 3, northeast of 2nd Avenue. And I'm going to go ahead and hand that back over to the forester for her presentation.
Thank you. So Lynn Hodges is the owner of San Carlos 3, northeast of 2nd Avenue. She's applied for a removal permit of a Monterey pine that's located in the back of the home. The tree was found to be a significant tree as a result of a building permit that happened back in 2004. And curiously enough, the forester at the time did approve some excavation near the tree within the 6 feet requirement to make repairs for a foundation. So that's precedent that the tree has been there for a while, and the city knew about it and rated it significant, even though it was damaging the structure. So Ms. Hodges is asking to go ahead and take that tree out. And she has provided in your packet more detailed information and photos. So you can see how close the tree is to the back of the house. So it's located there in the back per the site plan. And you can see here the proximity of the tree to the house, very close, as well as the rippling that's caused by the root system into the driveway and the upheaval of the deck. The upheaval of the deck now is causing water to run into the rear door of the structure. Here's another view of the proximity of the tree to the roof. At this time, It's not in contact with the roof itself. However, because of the position of the tree in the city at the top of a hill that gets quite a bit of wind, that tree has the potential to sway significantly, as trees do. It reacts to the wind quite well and will sway and be structurally sound. However, this tree is big enough now and close enough to the roof. I would assert that in a good storm, possibly that tree could come in contact with the roof, causing further damage. Ms. Hodge also provided some photos of the damage that's happening on the interior of the structure. So there are cracks in the walls, there are cracks in the staircase. Here you can see how unlevel the deck actually is. Here's a crack in the foundation itself of the garage, which is detached. And here's the cracking inside and some other spots in the kitchen as well. So it's my recommendation to go ahead and approve the permit application and ask that she plant one upper canopy tree or pay the $800 in lieu of fee. And the applicant already has paid the application fee.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for what our forester has presented? No questions. Do we know if the applicant is either here or online and would like to make a statement?
Yes, I believe she is.
Okay.
Ms. Hodges, are you there? Ms. Hodges? If you're here, we can't hear you. Unmute yourself, please.
What is that, star?
Sorry, star 6 if you're here, if you need to unmute.
Which one is she?
We don't know.
Alrighty then. Looks like she might not be here.
Sarah, is her first name Nancy?
No, it's Lynn.
It's Lynn.
Okay.
Well, okay. In consideration of time, if she does happen to surface, we can have her make a statement. When I open it up to any public comment in regards to this, would anyone care to speak to this? Hello, Ramey. Go ahead. I'll give you.
Hi, I have a question. Is it a Canary Island pine or is it a Monterey pine? Because her little presentation there had said that it was a Canary Island pine.
I ID'd it as a Monterey pine.
Okay. I just am curious, is there anything being done within the building department about allowing remodeling and such to be this close to a tree? Granted, this was 15, 17 years ago when this happened, but is there anything that's changed so that we don't let this happen? Because the tragedy is this tree is doing very, very well and thriving, apparently. It's growing incrementally. And now we have to take it down because it's too close to the house.
So I would say yes. So now when plans come into the city for review, as the forester, I review all of those plans. The first step is to do the site assessment, documenting where all the trees are, and establishing a critical root zone where no excavation can take place. From there, the proposed footprint of the building is reviewed in relation to the tree itself. In some cases, the structure can extend into the critical root zone through the use of piers or cantilevers, but I'm making sure that there's ample space for the trees to grow to their full genetic potential.
Great. So if this was a 6-inch tree 15 years ago, you would have not allowed that addition to happen, correct?
Technically, that tree would If it was under 6 inches, would not have rated significant on the site assessment per the protocol outlined in the code.
Okay. So it would have been taken out then?
It could have been taken out.
Yeah, okay.
Got it. It looks like a couple new numbers have popped on. Ms. Hodges, is that you, the 509?
Yes, I've been waiting via Zoom and I wasn't able to get in, so my husband and I are now here dialed in.
Wonderful. Well, why don't I go ahead and I think, Bramy, you didn't have anything else, did you? Okay, thanks. Ms. Hodges, if you'd like to speak to your application, then we'll go ahead and give you the floor.
Okay. We submitted a PowerPoint presentation documenting how the property looked at the time when McBride built the cabin, or the cottage rather, and the changes that have occurred over the past couple of years, and really pronounced in probably the last 9 to 18 months, to the point where it is causing damage to the deck, the exterior pavers, and now encroaching on the structure and creating lots of cracks. And I did not put this in the PowerPoint, but the door, the rear door that's depicted in many of the photos, and it gives you a good perspective on the size of that tree relative to that door, by the way. The door is getting stuck and the threshold is angled now because of it. So there's an ingress-egress issue. There are certainly tripping hazards because of this, which is a pretty significant concern. But the damage is increasing on a very, really kind of a rapid basis. That's a good overview, I think, for you, and I can answer any additional questions, or Bill can add something if as necessary.
Okay, thank you for making your presentation, and I'll turn it over to the commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions, so without any other further comment from the public, I don't see anyone else that looks to comment. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
I think that, we are supposed to consider keeping the tree if it's minor damage, but this wasn't minor damage. This was pretty extensive in quite a different parts of the house. So to me, even though the tree might live longer, it needs to go. I think they need to be able to fix their house.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with the forester. I know that I had a tree like that, and they do sway quite considerably in winds, and they are up in that area of the city property where up on that hill you do get some fairly sizable breezes coming in from the ocean, and I think it probably would be swaying a lot, and it's much closer to the roof line, so I think it's only going to get worse over time, especially if with our climate change issues, the wind has definitely been increasing on the winter time, so I'm in agreement with the forester that the tree should probably go.
Right, I would definitely agree as well. I think the applicant did a good job of demonstrating, especially the damage inside the home.
Agreed.
Obviously, the external is easy enough to see, so appreciate that. And sorry to see a beautiful and healthy tree go, but I think the potential danger to the home and the occupants in it supersedes. The question in the recommendation beyond the approval of the permit is the requirement of whether or not to plant one new upper canopy tree or pay the in lieu fee of $800. Did either of you have an opinion about that? Or do we want to discuss this? What's our thoughts? Maybe turn to the forester asking about the trees on the property. Did you feel like the upper canopy would... What was your opinion? You didn't really say one way or the other.
Right. The upper canopy recommendation was to meet the density recommendations. The public right-of-way there is considerably wide, and there are a number of upper canopy trees, pines that are large in the public right-of-way. So with the removal of the tree from inside of the deck, there's not adequate space to plant a new tree in the backyard. And in the front, those right-of-way trees are taking up most of the sunlight and space. So I would leave it up to the property owner if they would choose to plant another upper canopy tree, but because of the site constraints, I think it could be difficult to require a planting.
Great, right. And as I recall, wasn't there an oak in the, kind of in the further back part?
Yes, there's an oak on the back of the property, and then there's hardscape, and then in the backyard on the south side is another large Monterey pine.
Okay. As a side note, we also did recognize that there's an additional pine on the north end, is that, no, the south end of the house?
The south.
That is very close to touching it. You had suggested that perhaps we might be able to make some sort of a statement about that so that the applicant, if it's at a point in time they choose to want to remove it, then it won't need to come back through this process?
That's a possibility that the commission could choose to do. It is very close to the house. The second tree is closer to the roof than the tree under discussion now. However, it's not close to the ridge line. It's at the bottom of the roof, close to the gutter. So I would anticipate that it's going to start swaying as well and could cause the damage to the gutter sooner than later. But knowing the existing condition and if there is any potential interior damage as well, it might be expeditious to go ahead and pre-approve removal of that second tree when the applicant feels like it's time for it to be removed.
So I'll just ask for kind of point of order from you, Director. What is that something in that wasn't something that was brought to us by the applicant? Is it something that we can make it a statement so that this wouldn't need to come back to us in the future?
I'm not sure if I understand the question exactly, but the commission can certainly approve or deny the application and direct the applicant to work with the city forester to identify a future or a location of a replanting or the payment of the in lieu fee. So it doesn't have to be decided by the commission tonight. It could be deferred to the forester to work with the applicant to make that decision.
Okay, actually, so you weren't with us on the tour. There's a second tree that's not part of the application that is very close to the home, and we imagine at some point.
If that other tree was not on the application itself, that is not subject to today's approval or denial. So that would have to be a future application.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. That's good. Well then, without any other discussion from the commission, is there a motion?
I'll have a motion to agree with the city forester for the removal of the tree.
And then, as it relates, sorry, I don't want to change your motion.
As it relates to the tree in question with the permit, as well as agreeing with either the fee-based or the replanting of a new tree at the option of the
I second that.
owner of the property.
Second.
How'd that go? Did you get that?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll refer back to it in the video too.
Perfect.
Okay, Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Chair Myers,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion is passed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's see, where was I? Well then, with the consent agenda completed, we have orders of business. Orders of business are agenda items that require city council, board, or commission discussion, pardon me, debate, direction to staff, and/or action. And looks like the first of our orders of business is the Scenic Pathway Bench Survey results and recommendation to the Planning Commission. So looks like our director is taking over. I'll hand it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this on?
Doesn't sound like it.
Does not sound like it's on. Joel, can you turn on the podium
I'm at the
mic?
podium, Joel. Wait, I think it's on now.
Wait, that sounded like it.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we get this projected on the screen?
sir.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's try that again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the Scenic Pathway Bench Survey results and making recommendations to the Planning Commission. First, I wanted to go into the background, what happened in 2021. As you've seen several times in the past, the Planning Commission is the body that has the authority to approve or deny benches throughout the city, anywhere in the city. In July of 21, so a year ago, the Planning Commission deliberated on a single bench application. But at that point, they requested to kind of look at the big picture. Where are all these benches going? Why don't we take a look at the larger picture? So at that point, the planning department evaluated the locations and developed a map, which is in attachment 4. That's in your packet. In October of last year, the Planning Commission approved the 13 benches that were identified in that planning's map that was suggested by the planning staff. So there was 13 benches. In addition, the Planning Commission approved 3 additional benches at the south end. About November of last year, Carmel Cares, as well as others, strongly objected to having any more benches on the scenic pathway. And in December of last year, Brendan Swanson, who stepped out at a convenient time, who's a director of community planning and building, he presented to the commission, kind of here's the story of what happened, seeking Forest and Beach Commission's feedback. And that's kind of when it was transferred to the Forest and Beach Commission to deliberate on this issue and make recommendations back to the Planning Commission. There were 2 more benches that were previously approved, but were not yet installed. Apparently, bench number 10 was one of those 2, so I stand corrected from the tour of inspection. But anyway, those 2 particular benches are what we call grandfathered in. They're not under consideration today.
But can, just for clarity on this, Bob, this is my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe from a historical standpoint, those 2 that were previously approved,
Correct.
were part of the 16 that the Planning Commission felt that they were putting either on hold or not. So there's a bit of a confusion about how those 2 benches that were approved fit into the 13 plus 3, because I think those 2 were a part of the total 16. So I just for clarity's sake, we need to define that and make sure that the Planning Commission understands that those 2 that were approved, just because I think we want to be clear on what was originally understood, because I think it was wrong.
Okay.
I want to make sure that that's clear.
A fantastic question. I do not know the answer for certain.
Okay.
And it certainly might have been part of those 16.
Okay.
So we'll ask Mr. Swanson when he comes back.
Okay.
Or if he comes back, I guess. Okay.
Sorry, please continue.
What's that?
Please continue.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so in 2022, in January, the Planning Commission heard this matter and essentially decided to reopen the public hearing, which is an unusual step, but they decided to reopen the public hearing at a date to be determined and ask the Forest and Beach Commission and for the public for additional input before they made a redetermination. In April, with the city forester's help, the Forest and Beach Commission considered various methods and questions to solicit input from the public in formulating recommendations to the Planning Commission. If you recall, you selected a postcard-sized survey. There he is. And then in May of earlier this year, the commission approved the bench survey itself. There was some minor changes. So that bench survey was since printed. It was posted online on the city's website and on the application called Nextdoor, as well as Facebook Carmel. It was also handed out by the commissioners on the Scenic Pathway and at the post office. It was also available to pick up at City Hall and at the Carmel Foundation. So July 22, which is today, so now it's the Forest and Beach Commission's turn to review the survey results and the goal of providing recommendations back to the Planning Commission about these benches. At a date to be determined, the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing, gathering this additional input, including with Forest and Beach Commission's input. Okay, if you recall the bench survey, what we asked in the bench, it's hard to read, I apologize. Bench survey, first we requested comments, and I can see we ended up getting 193 written comments that are listed in your packet in the attachment 3, I believe. We had 3 main questions. Does the scenic pathway need more benches? With a yes, no, or not sure. Have you ever had trouble finding a bench to sit on? The yes or no. And if so, at what point in time did this happen? Was it in the morning, midday, or at sunset? We also asked where in the pathway did this happen? And I believe those comments were kind of scattered for any kind of statistical analysis. And we also finally asked what is your zip code that you live in? So here's the fun stuff. Here's the results of that survey. We had 354 responses, which is a very high success rate in getting people to comment. So that's good news. On the upper left-hand side, the main question, does the scenic pathway need more benches? And of the 354 responses, 50.8% said no, that's in red. 37% said yes, and 12% were not sure. On the bottom right, the question was, have you ever had trouble finding a bench to sit on? Of those responses, 66%, so 2 out of 3 said no, had no problem finding a bench. And about 33% said yes, they had a problem, at least at one point. Again, the question was, did you ever have a problem? It didn't say, do you have a problem each and every time you visit the pathway. Upper right, got the zip codes. There was really 3 zip code areas. One was 93921, which is Carmel-by-the-Sea proper. 61% of the respondents live in the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea proper. 23% live in the greater Carmel, which is 93923. That extends from the Holman Highway roundabout. I think even Carmel Woods, maybe possibly part of Pebble Beach. Carmel Highlands, partway down into Big Sur, in fact, and a third of the way up to Carmel Valley. So it's called the greater Carmel area.
Let me interrupt you just a second,
Sure.
Bob, because some of us in the city have 23.
Do they?
So, and because I got my neighborhood, there's at least 10 or 15 more that were in
Okay.
the city.
Okay. Well, I don't live here, so I'm in the outside. And then 16% of people who live elsewhere, whether that's in Monterey or across the country or a different country for that matter. But I think the main point here is that 61 and 23, it's 84% of people are essentially local. So these are people who are actually using the pathway on a regular basis. We drill down just a little bit further on the 93921 respondents, need more benches, and of those people who I believe those people are all engulfed in Carmel-by-the-Sea, although there's more. Of those, 67%, that's the quantity.
67.
67 people said yes, 117 people said no, and 30 were not sure. So if we compare that, so 31% said they needed more benches that live right here, compared to 37% that said yes, considering all the respondents. 55% of the people right here said no, they don't need any more benches, compared to 51% if you look at the big picture. So I guess the message here is the people closest to the pathway are more in favor of not having additional benches than people perhaps further away. And drilling down on people who could not find an empty bench, of those 109 people, only 7% said there was a problem in the morning. That seems to be pretty trivial, but certainly the concern was at midday and sunset, fairly even, 46, 47%. So if people did have a problem, it was either midday, which is when it's most crowded, or at sunset, which is often the most crowded. We had 193 respondents that had comments, which is in attachment 3. Hopefully you had a chance to review them, all 9 pages, and a lot of interesting comments. There's some comments that had little to do with benches, but I think there's certainly a lot of consistency of comments regarding the benches. Okay, now we get into our homework. So the goal of this report is for the Forest and Beach Commission to formulate recommendations to the Planning Commission. And I think we're looking at 4 recommendations, and we'll take them one at a time. The first one is to recommend the number of additional benches that you would recommend that the Planning Commission consider. The second one is the style of any additional benches. Third is the location of additional benches. And the fourth would be any other recommendations. The Commission has talked in the past about updating the bench policy, but that could be a number of other things. So I think we're going from the lowest hanging fruit to the more complicated topics. So we're going to consider each one of these one at a time. Then after public comments, we'll repeat the next 4 slides. So we don't have to make decisions at this point. We're going to just introduce it now. Let's listen to public input and then start formulating comments or recommendations. Okay, so recommendation number 1 would be, what are the recommended number of additional benches that should be in the pathway? And the number could be 0. That seems to be the consensus of the survey, but that's for your commission to decide if that's what you want to recommend to the Planning Commission. Or it could be any other number. It could be up from 1 to, I guess, 16 or 14 or some other number. I'll put a little star up at the number of 0, because even if there's no benches are recommended, which is a perfectly fine recommendation, the Forest and Beach Commission may still want to provide recommendations about locations or style of benches in case the Planning Commission goes ahead with a certain number of benches anyway. Okay, they have the prerogative to do that. So if the Planning Commission wants to say 6 benches as a random number, if maybe they'll factor in Forest and Beach Commission's recommendations for style, locations, that type of thing. Okay? So when we come back to this slide in a little bit, we'll be seeking Commission's recommended number of additional benches. Now we move on to the style of benches. And this bench style was part of attachment 4, which was in that planning map. There's 3 styles that were in the map. Style 1 was a backless redwood bench. We saw several of those in our tour. Style 2 was the redwood bench with a backrest. Some of the comments we saw in the responses suggested that they liked those the best. I did not see any comments that said they prefer not to have a backrest, but there was only a handful that said, yes, they prefer the backrest. And style 3 is a half log on stone supports. And so you kind of saw like a variety, and there's some sub-variations of those, but those are the 3 predominant styles that are out along the scenic pathway. Or the Commission could say a whole other style. I don't think you'd want to suggest a Home Depot park bench, or at least proceed with great caution if you do. But anyway, it doesn't have to necessarily be these styles. This is suggested based on, it's already been reviewed. These are what's existing out there. This is what some of the comments have been. Now we get a little harder. Recommendation number 3 to the Planning Commission would be, if there are any additional benches, where should those go? On the bottom right, that's the map that you saw in the planning map. And so to help guide the Commission, I came up with the following bullets. So the location is really broken up into 3 main areas between 8th and 9th Avenues, 10th and 11th, and south of 12th. The Commission may say, gee, we want 0 additional benches between 8th and 9th, or up to X number between 8th and 9th. In the packet on the map, there was 4 proposed benches between 8th and 9th. The second bullet, you could have recommend 0, or you could request up to a certain number of benches between 10th and 11th. On the planning map, they had 5 additional new benches between 10th and 11th. And it could be 0 or up to any given number of benches south of 12th. And on the planning map, they had 4. Actually, 2 were south of 12th and 2 were south of Santa Lucia. And again, perhaps Director Swanson can advise us about the 2 grandfathered in, if those part of those 16 or not. We'll get to that in a moment. Another option for the Commission is the heck with the location. It could be just based on certain criteria. For example, perhaps there should be up to a certain number of benches located near beach access stairs. No more than 3, no more than 8, whatever. It could be the number of benches clustered together. We saw a case where there could be up to 4 someday if those were all approved. There's several that are completely isolated. So that could be a criteria that the commission may want to recommend to the planning commission. Or there could be up to a close or not so close to significant trees. So there's a wide range of criteria that could be used. But again, staff is suggesting that we look at the map that was carefully planned and thought out by the planning department. There was a reason for those locations were selected. And there's 13 that were flagged out in the field. And perhaps rather than starting an endless array of possible locations, perhaps the way to make a decision and to go forward is to hopefully use these locations as a guide. Okay? And then recommendation number 4, is anything else you might want to recommend to the Planning Commission? We have talked about updating the bench policy, and some of you have said over the last several months, things such as the bench policy should be updated to include, to at least address the duration of benches on the pathway. Once they're installed, are they there forever? Are they there for 10 years, X number of years? There has been discussion in the past about a fee for installation. There is a fee for installation now, or a fee for maintenance and collection. And apparently, way back when, there was a requirement for a fee for maintenance that probably has not consistently been collected over the course of time, over the decades. There could also be a criteria for a memorial plaque. We saw several different plaque sizes, font styles. Some people are, memorializing a parent. Some of the plaques were in recognition of someone who was a community activist or a politician or someone who did something heroic on behalf of the city. And of course, you could have any other recommendation. So we're just trying to guide into the myriad of possible recommendations to try to make something that's meaningful to the Planning Commission and that we can get this process moving forward. Oops. Okay, so I'm almost done. So the next steps is for the commission to ask questions of myself or Mr. Swanson. Then we don't want to open it up to public comments, and that would be testimony limited to 3 minutes. Then the goal is to provide the 4 recommendations to the Planning Commission, or you can provide other direction to staff. Maybe you need more information, we come back next month, or maybe you make some recommendations today and make some recommendations at the next meeting. So that's certainly up to you. And again, the 4 recommendations that we're looking at are the number of additional benches, the locations, the style, and any other related recommendations such as updating a bench policy. And with that, I'll be happy to open up for any questions.
So from the commission, I believe we already had a question, and we can perhaps maybe get an answer at this point from Brandon. Do you want to pose your question again?
Yeah, Brandon, so we were kind of going through the initial part of the slide deck, and
sorry,
it was addressing, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay.
Yeah, you can answer it.
We'll open up to public comment in a few minutes, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
So we were it was looking at the count of proposed benches, and there were 13, and then there were an additional 3 at the south end of the beach. There were so for a total of 16.
Correct.
But it was my understanding that within those 16, in the context, the 2 that had already been approved
from like a year and a half prior.
From a year and a half were included in that 16?
They were
or
not.
included?
They were not included. So those are separate and apart from the 16.
So that would make
18, huh?
So that would make the total, including the approved, would be a total of 39 benches in place and then another 16 proposed.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so the two that were previously approved, the year and a half before, they're not related in any way, shape, or form to those 16 that the Planning Commission approved.
Okay, and the Planning Commission was aware of those other two that were pending and have been approved as a part of their additional 16?
I would assume so. I mean, they're the ones that approved it, so
Okay.
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Can you give us what the rationale for the Planning Commission was that they decided that all of a sudden there needs to be 16 more?
So they didn't pick a number. So the rationale, the reason, so let's see. I think the impetus for it was we were bringing forward bench requests or bench applications one at a time to the Planning Commission. And the one that came to them before this sort of program to do them all in one batch, the one that came to them before that was in a poor location. It was right on the edge of a bluff. The Planning Commission didn't think it was an appropriate location, and so they gave direction to staff, go and do an analysis, walk the whole pathway, see where there's appropriate locations, and then come back to us and we'll see if we can pre-approve a whole group of them. So that was the genesis of why that happened.
But that doesn't tell me why we needed more.
Because they were continuing to receive applications for benches.
So it has to do with the memorial part.
It has to do with the fact that they were receiving more applications for benches.
Because it was pretty clear in what people were saying that they didn't want this to be a memorial thing or to be a whole bunch of seats the way it is on the East Coast, actually. Someone was.
Yeah.
But the Planning Commission was responding to the fact that there was a backlog of 16 or more requests for bench memorialization. Is that correct?
There wasn't a backlog, no. They were I think what they were responding to is that on a pretty regular basis, people were coming with an application for a bench rather than taking them one at a time and trying to figure out where the right place was. Because they had done it, if you recall, they've actually done this once before in history. They actually, I think when Catherine Tyrone was here, they actually did this once before where they set pre-approved locations. So I believe the concept was, well, let's do that again because we're starting to see an uptick in applications.
So when those get full, then there would be still more?
When which ones get
But
full?
if this new 16
The
had.
direction from that Planning Commission meeting was the 16 and then done. That was their take, is this is all. I don't believe that was stated before in the previous group that they did.
Was this just to cater to people or was it for money? I mean, it's very puzzling because it's never been quite that way before.
Yeah, I mean, the stated objective of the Planning Commission was just that they're getting more applications for these, so they wanted to. So I don't.
So you say no?
Yeah. So what?
So you say no, there's no more benches. At one point, there was a 15-year limit, and then the benches could be renamed. And I don't know what happened to that 15 years.
So the city updated its bench dedication policy
To what? How
to
long?
what the current policy is right now,
Which is forever.
which does not have a sunset
doesn't.
date on it. Yeah.
So these people the family's gone and everything, and they still has a name.
Yeah.
Well, so that's part of the, I guess, what Bob was talking about. And I think, would like to see the Forest and Beach Commission, and I think we were kind of requested that by the Planning Commission as well, is to kind of do a thorough vetting of this. And I think you can't really just recommend the benches without coming down into the guidelines. And what do we think based on the feedback surveys and our own review of what's gone on with just how many benches, what's the current policy, because there seems to be a lot of confusion on the policy. As you had just stated, the Planning Commission was making a request for additional benches because of a application flow. Yet the guidelines say the only reason we're supposed to have additional benches would be if there is a need. Is there a need for more benches? Is the need defined as, we just got applications, so we need to fill them? Or is the need, do we need them? Are there no benches for people to sit on?
Yeah.
Commissioner, let's hold off on having a discussion right now.
Okay.
What's happening is we have an opportunity to ask some questions of staff
Agreed.
we're curious, looking for answers before we actually open it up to public, and we will bring it back and we will have a discussion. I had one question, and I know you presented it before, and I apologize for not being able to go back and do you had it? When was the very first bench put in?
When was the very first one?
Yeah, the very first one.
I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you had that. Darn it.
I can probably get that for you. I can have someone on my team
Does anybody
look it up,
recall?
and then.
Well, it was a long time ago.
Well, sure.
Before I
okay.
was born, I think.
Got it. Okay.
But I'll look. What I'll do is I'll ask one of my staff to look
It
it up while
was-
I'm sitting in here, and then
Okay.
I can come back to
We
you.
should ask
Thanks.
Lucinda Lloyd, she might
Yeah.
know, since those were the first ones. So.
Well, I don't have any other questions for staff. Commissioners, any other questions? No? Then, thank you. Per our director's direction, we will open it up to public comment.
Right, and Yvette, if you could put on the 3-minute clock, because we might have a lot of comments
And
today.
a little-
let me make one
Sure.
comment, just since we have this quorum issue, I absolutely have to leave by 6:15, so, because I have tickets to Bach tonight, and I have to get some people there, so.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. Appreciate that.
Be done at 6:14 and a half. We did that last time.
We will.
We were to the
we'll
minute.
get there.
Last time was my birthday.
What I'm going to do, because we do have an audience here in chambers, I'm going to ask for anyone here in chambers to step up first for public comment before we'll take it online. I see your hand, Mary, but we'll get to you, I promise. But at first, I'm going to open it up here. So sort of looked as if you wanted to make a comment in regards to the benches. If you would, if you'd care to, state your name, that we appreciate that. And then we'll go ahead and offer you 3 minutes. So.
Okay, my name is Bill Berg, and I live up in the Greater Carmel on Ocean Avenue. And one extra thing I thought I'd mention about the benches is that when I was walking Shirley down there for the last few years, sometimes there was a shortage of benches with a view that were in the shade. So that's something maybe in addition to what you were talking about. So the location that I picked was kind of addressed that problem. And the bench that I would like, that I applied for, is in memory of my wife, who died in 1918. 20. Yeah, what am I trying to say?
2018. We're with you.
2018. And but she graduated from Occidental College in 1955, and her first job was teaching first grade at River School. And she had always wanted to come back here, but it took me a while to realize that we lived in the Bay Area for almost 50 years, but 15 years ago bought the house here. And she was really happy about it and really loved to come. And initially she had a few colleagues that were still alive, but that's no longer the case. But maybe some of those first graders are still around and would enjoy seeing her name. And it occurs to me that I better put down that they would know her as Miss Peck. So I probably should add that name if I ever get to put the bench up. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Doesn't look anyone else from our chambers that would care to speak? No? Okay, it doesn't look like it. Then we'll go ahead and take it online. Mary, you're the first hand I saw go up. It's Miss Smith. There you go. If you, I don't know if that's your name actually is associated with whatever number you're calling in. So if you want to change that, please let us know. And then we'll go ahead and give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I wasn't planning on speaking today, and I have strep throat, so if you can't understand me, please let me know. I wanted to draw attention to another pattern in the comments that I saw, and that was that seniors and people with mobility issues really want more benches. The bench that we applied for, we requested to be near the handicap accessible parking spots between 8th and 9th. And I'm sorry to say, some of the comments were hard to read because they made it sound like the people requesting these benches were, looking to just put their names on a bench or create a mausoleum down by the beach. And of course, that's not what anyone who wants to memorialize a loved one is trying to do. We requested the bench next to these parking spots because my father had polio as a child and mobility issues as a result. And he would have loved sitting on a bench there, and he would have loved seeing other people sitting on a bench there who had similar challenges. As far as the duration, I think it is really wise to revise that policy. It shouldn't be forever, but I also don't think it should be 15 years. I think it should be as long as the family is willing to keep up with the maintenance costs. And once they're not, I think that bench should be recycled and let another family who wants to do it. You know, no one lives on forever, but it's such a nice thing to let families have this physical memorial in such a beautiful spot, to be able to sit there and watch the sunset and think of their loved one and let other people enjoy that bench and do the same thing. It's a really beautiful program. And that kind of takes me to the last thing I want to say, which is I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that this is the stated purpose of the program, is for these benches to be memorials. The application that's on the city's website refers to them as memorial benches. So the idea that people who are applying are just trying to take advantage of an opportunity to, you know, throw their money around and get their name on a bench, it's not in keeping with what the city has said they want to accomplish with these benches. They're meant to be memorial benches. And I think we need to keep that in mind and carry the stated purpose forward in a way that is respectful to the community and respectful to the applicants. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's see. I believe Ms. Lloyd, your hand was up next. So if you'd like to go ahead and speak. Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Oh, good. My name is Cindy Lloyd, and I am a lifelong resident of Carmel. Not that that means anything, except that I'm old. But thank you very, very much, Sarah, for mentioning that I might have a little bit of history. I don't have accurate history, but it can always be retrieved. My dad was on the city council and mayor pro tem when he died, and that was in 1983, I believe. And it was decided by the council at that time to honor him for his service on the council, as well as his lifelong love for Carmel. So they installed a bench below where the Scenic bathroom is now. And Maya Miyamoto went out to the quarry and quarried the rock for the plaque, and they installed it. Then in 1988, around there, when Jean Grace then was elected mayor of Carmel, there was a plan afoot that she and Greg D'Ambrosio worked on diligently to have a beach bluff pathway so that we no longer had to walk in Ocean Avenue, along Scenic, dodging cars. And so it was installed, and it was beautiful and was great. I don't know if my dad's bench was the first one there, but the pathway also included a number of benches and sites and styles. So then following that in 1992, my mother died, and Carmel Heritage chose to honor her with a bench and a rock and a plaque, because she was at the time considered the unofficial historian for Carmel, long time writer for the Carmel Pine Cone, as well as editor of the Pine Cone. So I can speak to those two benches. And that's about it in terms of the history. After that, more benches began to appear, and I personally did go down along Scenic at the height of the Surfabout contest on a very, very hot day, and I was surprised to see empty benches. I would have expected them to be all filled, and they weren't. So my deduction from this was probably we don't need any more benches at this point. So if we base it on need, we don't need it. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's see. I believe I saw Shirley's hand up. I can't see it anymore right now, but maybe Yvette, you're able to switch us back out, because Cindy probably doesn't want to be up on the big screen.
Shirley's hand is up. Shirley, go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, you did not receive the document that I emailed early this morning, and I'll try to summarize it, but it was 4 pages of research that I wanted to provide to you. The Forest and Beach Commission has an opportunity to give in-depth guidance to the Planning Commission that can encourage a restructuring of how the scenic pathway should be managed and protected for years to come, rather than just recommending the appropriate number and placement of benches for this year. Although the request from the Planning Commission was for a full vetting with the outcome from the vetting and process being a specific recommendation to the number and location of benches, the Planning Commission was clearly interested in an in-depth review with thoughtful considerations, and I urge you to provide that to them. The more I look into this history of the benches, starting with the design of 33 years ago, the Scott Hall landscape design, the shoreline assessment report, all of these documents provide some guidance, and I would like to see us take enough time to pull it all together to really make a change that is not just a number of benches and locations, but really restructure the guidelines, restructure who is in charge of reviewing the pathway furniture, and try and coordinate it with where we are now and where we want to end up. The survey was interesting, and I think it should be a very strong component of what your final assessment is, but it's not, to me, the end of the research. And if I were to summarize it, if you have to come up with something, I really have come down to the idea that there should be 1 new bench added to the pathway built to ADA height requirements, and that it must be installed south of Santa Lucia. 2, that the 2 pending benches scheduled and not yet installed be at ADA height requirements and limited to south of 12th section, and that location, P10, be eliminated. Now, I was told that P10 and P13 is exactly where those 2 already approved benches are going to be installed. So there is a bit of confusion and mix-up on that. And the total number of benches for the pathway should never exceed 40. I hope that you get my document and will take the time to read through it. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Shirley, and we'll look forward to that document being received. Let's see. Yvette, I can't see if there's other hands up. I imagine there probably are.
It looks like Teresa Tellep.
Great.
Teresa, go ahead.
Right, Teresa. You're on, Teresa. Go ahead. Oh, you might have muted. Well, you don't look like you're muted.
I don't show that she's muted. I show that she's, well.
Okay, maybe we can come back to her. Is there anyone else that you see?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, Teresa, it looks like you unmuted yourself. Are you prepared to make a comment? Let's give her a few seconds here to figure it out. Maybe, Teresa, you want to hang up and dial it right back?
Okay, she just muted herself again.
Just trying. She has. Right. We'll give her a few seconds more here to.
Teresa, if you can hear us, if you want to try to call back in, because we can't hear you at all if you're speaking.
think at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that to public comment, and then if she comes back on, then we'll allow her to make her comment. No, but I'm going to bring it back without seeing any additional public comments. I didn't see his hand up. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it back for discussion to the commission. And again, we'll allow for, I see Teresa's pop back on. Teresa, can we hear you, Teresa? Yeah, okay, so I'm going to bring it back. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. We've got a pretty big task. We've got 4 points that we need to address or not address as a commission. We can make a decision to defer to a later date if we see fit. But let's, I think our director's given us a good path to take here. Let's start with the first recommendation and then work our way through, right? Does that make sense? So this is in regards to the number of benches, and with that in mind, whoever would like to make some comments regarding this, we'll leave it to.
I'll start if that's okay.
Please.
Let me turn this on. Okay. I would, my first choice would be to keep what we have and look this over very carefully to see what we want. This one person said that it says they're memorial benches. They weren't originally that. I don't know when they became that. If I were choosing, the few that are on what I would say the west side of it's not always the west, but the west side of towards the ocean, those would be acceptable if we had to have more. The ones that are on away from the ocean side are simply in the way when you're trying to, for the people who are on them, because people are walking so close to them, but also when you have to step off the path, which is not in places wide enough, you have to circle around them or whatever with the benches. And as Shirley already mentioned, that one at, was it 10? Oh, the one at 10, I think it was 10 there right by the stairway of 12th. Couldn't be a worse location. Brian and I had talked about that. So I'm very puzzled by the fact that as many people said they couldn't find benches as they did. For the last 3 or 4 weeks, I have been counting when I go by. And so Saturday before last, 18 of the 36 were empty at sunset on a Saturday. And this is the usual, that I've never seen more than 18 occupied at different times in the day. So that's kind of where I am. If we had to have more, it would be the ones that are, I can give the numbers of the ones I think, but why don't you go ahead and I'll look up the numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, there are 39 benches currently with the 2 that are still to be built.
He's just speaking to the microphone. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. There are 39 benches with the 2 that still are proposed to be built. So there are 37 existing,
That's
2 more to be
worse.
built for a total of 39. Just for knowledge, as I understand.
Right, so I believe what's before you is, should there be any additional beyond that?
Right, so my 2 cents on this is, and I'm going to go back to the guidelines for purposes of what we're asking here, and I'm going to go back to this issue of need again. And I think Commissioner Burling's comments about, in her viewpoint, and we could look to other people that have done a lot of scouting on the scenic pathway, and there's been rarely a time where there haven't been benches available. So that need, if we're talking about need, if there isn't a bench to sit on, I don't believe that exists. And I think to just add more benches and go away from at least one point of a guideline that we have, which is only add more benches if there's a need, I don't think that qualifies at this point. I think our survey tends to enforce that with at least people's quick and dirty responses on a very simplistic survey, that the majority of the people felt there wasn't a need for more benches. I think within the survey, we've got a lot of great comments and a lot of things that I think is a part of our recommendation to the Planning Commission, as well as probably even the City Council. But again, as far as just addressing the need for more benches, I don't think we need any more, given the needs issue based on the survey and my own personal observations and feedback from other people. So just from that first question about do we want any more benches, my vote is no more benches.
So zero.
Zero.
Got it.
That would be my vote also.
That's what you're recommending. Okay. First of all, I really appreciate the methodology that the Planning Commission went about to come up with when they did the density study. I mean, they really spent some time thinking through the traffic patterns on the pathways, and I understand, especially having Brandon talk to us today, saying, I have applications, what should we do? Let's go figure out where it makes sense. Mm-hmm. That would be the process of how it would come about. And I also recognize it's their prerogative. I do appreciate as well, though, that we're having an opportunity to weigh in, and hopefully, even though it was a somewhat informal survey, it's a survey all the same. We had 354 responses, and my whole thought around the survey was that I really wanted to understand what our community thought about this and what their direction was. And from what I'm seeing from their direction, I'm seeing that there isn't a desire for additional benches. And so I'm feeling the same way, that this isn't necessarily the need. Now, I did note that there was that one comment about a need over at the volleyball courts, and yeah. I think that's fantastic because I happen to be over in the volleyball courts a lot, and I think that's a great idea. But that's not what this is being discussed. So
thought of you when I said that.
That could be a future agenda topic.
It could, that's true. So I think then it sounds as if collectively our recommendation is that we're suggesting zero.
Correct.
And add a more prolonged period of really researching this and thinking about it. I will say with our questionnaire, when I actually was asking some people, several just said, oh, more benches sound fine, without any substance to it. And of course, if I said, well, how come, then that's not the same as they're doing it without.
I think as we go down this further,
we'll have a chance to address
mm-hmm. more robust way to deal with the bench consideration.
Yeah, and I will say my own personal thought about it, and especially looking at the way in which the Planning Commission did their study, wanting to put more benches where there was a higher density of people is counterintuitive to me. Mm-hmm. When, if you've got a lot of people in those places, I would think we should try to spread them out to really be able to truly enjoy mm-hmm. some of the benches that we looked at today. And I'm not a bench sitter, but I've walked by them over and over again. Some of them are beautifully framed out, and it'd be nice to be sitting at that one bench without having 4 other benches around me to enjoy that. But again, that's just my personal opinion, and what I really wanted to do and hopefully get from the survey was what our constituents are looking for. Mm-hmm. And through our comments, I really feel like that I think we're aligned. So sorry.
I do have a comment from Mary Holman-Smith. I believe she spoke earlier. It says, all of the benches across from our home on Scenic were busy during sunset multiple times last week. I wish I had taken a photo. If bench applications are no longer going to be considered application, fees should be refunded.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Okay, so it sounds like the commission has a consensus to recommend the Planning Commission 0 additional benches.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to go forward now to recommendation 2.
Please.
In the event the commission could be done and we could go home. However, the planning
not
commission
what
still has the option of
Right.
saying, regardless, there's an X number of benches that they authorize. So it behooves you to go forward and make additional recommendations.
Definitely would like to, and I think Shirley made a good point about that. And again, I feel as if the planning commission has actually turned back to us for some guidance. And whether or not they choose to follow it is up to them, of course, but I'm happy to continue here through these questions. So the style of benches that have been presented, there are 3, and as our director said, perhaps there's a different design that none of us have, or one of you might have, to you guys starting it out. Do you have any specific thoughts around?
Well, I like the variety, frankly. I agree that we had several asking for a back, but I think a variety is.
So, I mean, I guess, here's my 2 cents on this. I mean, I think from the survey, that you could see, so I think if we look at our constituency here, and I'm not going to make any discriminatory things, but we do have tend to have a little bit more of an elderly population here.
A little bit.
And the people that use the pathway, that really like the seats, they can rotate from many different locations along the pathway. They may take a walk for half a block and then want to sit down again. And I think the benches with the back rest seem to be more fitting for an elderly person who doesn't have to lean over and can rest in a way. And I haven't done a count of how many backless versus non-backed benches there are, but there might be an opportunity to address, in those positions where it made sense to have a back on a bench that's not currently there, that we could address that as a potential upgrade to a bench location, provide maybe along, at certain levels where you would think where someone could move to that next bench if they were elderly or they were maybe not as inclined to be able to walk a long ways, that they could sit and have some support to their back. It's a reasonable look, right?
Yeah, that might be for the older people, but those are shorter benches, all of them. Maybe they can be made longer, I don't know. But maybe. If 2s or 3s are looking for a spot, those 2s probably would fit on some of them. But just recently, a bunch of us from Carmel High were down there, and so we were in groups of 3, and there's some benches that are too short for that.
Yeah, I don't know that the bench style was ever meant to hold 4 or 5 people on them. I think it was, I don't know if that was the original. Is 3 what they were designed for? I don't know.
Well, no, there's quite a few that wouldn't hold 3. I mean, we walked a little ways before we found one that would.
The other issue, I mean, we're talking styles again, but maybe it's apropos because we mentioned that today when we were down there. A lot of comments, and this has been both from other people, not only just in the comments of the survey, but we've heard from before, is the lack of ADA compliant handicap benches, especially where we have handicap spaces for people to park. The bench situation there is not ADA compliant and receptive to a handicapped individual, whether it's in the sand or it doesn't have a ramp where you can get to the bench where someone in a wheelchair or something could scoot over or use that. And I think we need to address that issue as well, just for purposes of, if that's a style. I think it kind of is the handicap style, and I think all the benches should be ADA compliant if they're not. Right. And that may need to be done as just a part of a revamp, whether it's paid by the city or it's paid by the person that wants to keep the bench in maintenance. That's another issue, but again, that would be something I think we need to address. The spacing as well, I think, is something as a part of the design, as you said. We'll
talk about location, right next. So I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the recommendation is that, first of all, variety is good, but a preference to perhaps more with backs than less with backs.
In certain locations, it may make sense.
Right, correct. And then without a doubt, the reality of it is if any of our benches are non-ADA compliant, they obviously should, as soon as possible, be updated so that that's corrected.
Correct.
I think that, and we didn't have any additional design ideas. We're kind of good along those lines. So,
well, ADA compliant and/or handicap accessible, if we're going to make, because there's a difference between ADA compliant and handicap accessible. Correct, Bob?
Yeah. Let me clarify that. Any new benches that are installed now shall meet. There's no question. Shall meet ADA requirements. The problem is not all benches are accessible from an ADA compliant pathway.
Okay.
Okay. So someday that entire pathway will meet ADA compliant, but that could be many, many years into the future. We have non-compliant ADA parking spaces today that are on the list of things to make into compliance someday. So there's a long ways to go to make the pathway, the parking spaces, and all the benches ADA compliant. But any new benches that have been installed recently and going forward shall be ADA compliant. So that's not we have to meet federal law, period. So that's what we'll do.
But how about that, like, so I know that where there's the handicap parking, that there's not accessible handicap seating in where those handicap parking
I believe that is
spots
correct. So we have non-compliant ADA parking, non-compliant ADA benches, and I'm not sure about the pathway in between the two.
Okay.
May or may not be ADA compliant. But we have a number of issues to address on the pathway as a whole relative to ADA over the next many, many years.
Okay, okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate that. So I believe that we provided a recommendation for number 2.
So if I may paraphrase back, what we're hearing is that the Forest and Beach Commission will recommend the Planning Commission that you prefer a variety of styles 1, 2, and 3. You're not looking at alternate styles, and that to reinforce, of course, they would meet be ADA compliant, with a preference of more than a third have the back of the rubbered back.
I believe that represents the spirit of what we were saying.
That's good.
Okay, so that pretty
helps us
close?
out.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right, now we get into the much more complicated one. But we had good practice.
Number 3. So
It's only 5 after 5.
So our location of the additional benches, right? So it's been broken up into blocks, obviously, and
I just happen to have it.
let's take some comments about it that we'll be able to
Okay.
share back with the Planning Commission. And remember, of course, you have your ideas for sure, but let's do what we can to try to draw from what was given to us from our constituents. So, yes.
Okay, I'm not thinking that that they said that specific about where the benches should be.
If they did, yeah.
Okay, so if they really wanted more, of course, my choice would be on the ocean side of the path. So that would be 3, 3, 8, 11, and 12 would be the ones that I would,
3, 8, 11, and 12 are on the ocean side of the path.
yeah.
Those
Okay.
are the way, yes,
Okay.
she's saying that's her preference.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about the locations beyond that?
Well, I don't know if we were supposed to bring this up. There aren't any at the foot of ocean, and there could be, they'd have to make little platforms or something, but that's would be nice.
Right, the scenic pathway really essentially starts at 8th to Martin Way.
Yeah, but
So
we have a lot of tourists.
there's room for improvement certainly at the Del Mar parking
And then, of
area,
course, the
volleyball
volleyball
courts, North Dunes, elsewhere. But I think the scope of this study is the scenic pathway proper between
Well,
8th and
we may
Martin Way.
want to lead them in that direction a little bit at Ocean or so. If they feel that there needs to be more benches, there definitely are people coming in that area.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Sires?
I had a lot of responses from people at the beach area that they wanted to have, they said they wanted more benches, but they wanted them in the unincorporated Carmel area wrapped around,
Yeah.
where the butterfly house is and everything else, so they could get views
Well,
out
the
to Point
butterfly house
Lobos
is
in that area,
Carmel.
because there's no benching there at all.
The-
But that's county
bu-
property and county jurisdiction, so it doesn't even come under our,
The
purview.
butterfly house is in Carmel.
no, it's not. It's unincorporated Carmel.
I don't think so.
It's not under city, that's not under city,
County?
it's county.
No, I think it's.
Carmel Point, Martin Way is all county.
No, not on the ocean side.
Huh?
Not on the ocean
I
side.
thought it was.
No,
Yeah, where the Frank Lloyd Wright House is that is city?
yeah.
How about the Butterfly House further down towards
No,
Point
it
Lobos?
isn't.
That's county.
Okay,
So anyway, I mean, it's out, I mean, I think it's out of the jurisdiction, but.
To our director's point, this is a study directed specifically to the Scenic and what we want to address there, and I think that's valid. It's in great comments and perhaps should be a future agenda item, which we can discuss.
But I guess if we're saying as a commission that we don't want any more benches, why are we addressing locations? We're just doing that as a caveat to if they decide to overrule us and add more benches?
Well, I don't think it's an overruling. It's their prerogative. It's not ours. Right. So we're simply making, if they're choosing to go forward, then I think we have an opportunity to provide some input about where we would think that they would be most valuable.
Okay. So here's my...
And if I may, they did specifically request this information from your commission.
Yeah, so I mean, my 2 cents on this is I think there's, as was mentioned to us today by Shirley Moon, is that there are a lot of things going on right now down on the Scenic Pathway with new irrigation going in, landscaping or some level of design that's going through the planning stages right now. And that can impact potentially where additional benches could and couldn't go. So, I mean, I would like to throw it out there that it be in conjunction with, you know, what's being planned down there for purposes of the irrigation and the landscaping and things of that nature about where any additional locations would be allowed.
Okay, great. So I have 3 points that I would care to share, and then we can come up with
some dicks in my ass.
We can come up with our a collective recommendation. But first, the first for me would be.
Please be sure you're on mute. We're getting some background noise.
My first would be that.
It's crazy because
I've happened to agree.
I don't know what, Sebastian, I'm going to need your help here.
Who is it?
What the heck?
Can't see it.
Damn, she's so hot, man.
Okay.
Buddy, I don't have a bad that's a fact. Fuck any nigga that's hands. Only sucking dick if you're a man.
Oh my God.
It's a very interesting public comment.
What's
happening? What's happening? Somebody prove yourself, man.
Stay in the back. Suck on this dick.
Remove Jack Wall.
Okay, I think we got him. Okay.
I think we got him? Okay, very good. I'm in agreement that
if you're here, please, I need your help.
benches would be on.
But can you shut the fuck up?
Wow. Okay. That the benches
She's very handsome.
on the ocean side as opposed to
Please,
the
Ben, why do you move your mic?
Bro, what the fuck?
Well, I would suggest we take a breather. Sebastian, could you please mute all the people on the on Zoom?
That's definitely a hack. Let's
Sure,
see.
like-
Hello?
Yeah, let's just take a minute to let them resolve
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
Because it's very disruptive.
Just kind of.
Thank you.
Okay.
Said pause.
Oh my lord, what is happening here? Oh my lord. Oh my lordy lord.
Hi, John.
Oh my lord, is that Nick?
Why don't you guys just kill the Zoom and we'll call back in?
Yeah, I think they're good. They're good.
Right! I'm coming, bro.
Let's change the call because it's
Sounded like a hack Zoom. Never heard
I think so.
Really?
Yeah, they do it all the time in public meetings.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like a hobby.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's just AI actually, right? So
Yeah, probably.
just taps in, and so when there's a voice that's spoken, then it automatically triggers like some sort of a chorus of whatever we were just listening
Really?
to.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't think it's anybody really listening.
We officially got Zoom bombed. Yeah, so there was like 20 different people that they're all like bots, and there was like
Wow.
unsavory images and
Oh, I've never
things
seen
were
it.
going on in the Zoom. So we ended the Zoom meeting.
For sure.
So
Okay.
people have to log back in if they want, Sebastian.
But it's back on. We're back
I
on.
don't think it's back on yet.
Let's take another couple of
Sure,
minutes.
we'll wait.
Right now, the video feed is still going.
Uh-oh.
It's on delay, but JC's flipping.
Okay, so we're not on Zoom yet, so it's
No, it's
still not
delayed.
a.
This is what's on the feed online right
Let me
now.
see. Oh.
Right there, you were explaining the bot.
Zoom. What was it? A Zoom bot?
A Zoom bomb.
Zoom
A
bomb.
Zoom bomb. Yeah.
This is fun.
We have 62 minutes, Commissioner. So.
What time is the performance? 6:30?
No, it's actually 7:30, but I have to get my dog walked and then get these people who I offered to give a ride to before I realized it was the same.
I got a birthday dinner tonight.
Is it your birthday?
It is.
I have an industry event.
It's Bastille. It's Bastille Day.
Great.
Then if you leave, there's no quorum. That's all I
Right,
can
that was
tell you.
it. The pressure was on.
Bastille Day.
July 14th, right? Bastille Day.
Bastille Day. I think we're probably good. Or we have to wait for our
I think we have to.
recorded
Right.
video.
Yeah, we need to be back on Zoom so that the public has the
It
right
has to be
to
public
participate.
access, right. Anybody care for some more water?
Yeah, we're actually.
I'll take just a little bit, half.
Okay.
Perfect.
So Bob, if we have people that are interested in joining the Forest and Beach Commission, what should they do? Just go to City Hall
Just
to get
go to the
applications?
City Hall, ask for the city clerk, and then she'll walk them through the process and the handout material and the application.
So let's say someone just wanted to, so when was Darlene's term ending?
It was on
You
the
know?
city website, let's see.
See, I think that she really ended when the original date was, then they added 6 months. and
Right.
So.
But is it next May that her?
No, I
her-
think in October of this year, maybe.
Can someone come in and say they just want to finish off another commissioner's term if they didn't want to go all 4 years?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Let's see, we're up to the point where you started refilling cups.
Good.
Are we back?
No, we're just not off.
Oh.
This is the recording that streams out through the city website.
What's the news?
That's the dad's, right?
Yep, here it was.
Is there public Wi-Fi in here? Or-
Yes.
There's, okay,
It's under city guest.
thanks. CBTS guest?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, here you go.
But then you have to like log in, agree to terms of service or something, and then.
Okay. Let's get that going.
All right, we're back.
Sebastian, can you hear us down there now? Are we broadcasting again via Zoom?
We in good shape there, Sebastian, to go forward?
I think you guys are good to go for right now.
Okay, yeah, if Yvette can hear us, then we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
If,
I don't have a mic going now.
okay, if it happens again, I'm gonna end the meeting. I just removed somebody who was not familiar to our usual people. So I'm gonna do my best to try to keep my eye out to remove people. I wasn't able to do that earlier, so my apologies. I learned something new very quickly today, so we can move forward.
Okay, fair enough. Well, then I was making my comment in regard to locations, and I said I had 3 points. And the first was that I'm in agreement that the benches should be on the west side of the pathway as opposed to the east side of the pathway. I feel like it kind of takes them out of people walking in front of them, etc. First. Second, that instead of going to where the high density areas are and adding more benches. Instead, I would feel a lot more comfortable spreading people out along the pathway as opposed to creating density. I don't like the idea of 3 or 4 benches close together. And then last, of course, I would think that having a bench by where there's handicap parking makes a lot of sense to me, and it's remiss that wouldn't be kind of one of the first kind of spots that I would think would be addressed, regardless of it being memorial or not. So that's my thoughts.
Those thoughts are great. It would fit with.
Again, and just obviously we're recommending that we don't want to see any more benches based off of responses, but if the plan is to go forward, those are some ideas or does that sound?
Yeah.
We'll take those 3 as our recommendations?
Okay, so if I can paraphrase the back so we're sure we're on the same page. Okay, so there seems to be a preference for the 4 benches on the ocean side of the pathway, which is P3, 8, 11, and 12. That would be the preference for up to the next 4. Also prefer to spread them out, have no more than 3 in a cluster, 3 close together. The third comment, I'm a little bit vague, but the preference would be to add maybe a couple more benches where close to the ADA parking area. If the ADA parking area were to be to be relocated someday, I'm not sure how that would affect this recommendation, but I think that's for another day. We could say that you could say that you recommend that up to a couple more benches be close by the ADA parking spaces, wherever those are at whatever time.
The preference of order in which it would take place, right?
Yeah,
as opposed to allowing people to pick something when in reality the need is over by the handicap or the ADA.
ADA, right. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's right. The location is, I know specifically Commissioner Burling pointed out the ones that have been previously identified. I don't think that's our recommendation necessarily. It's not necessarily those specific locations, but just the west side of the pathway as opposed to the east side of the pathway.
They specifically asked for numbers, but we.
I know they're asking, but I think.
Or we can say, for example, the P3, 8. Those are the types of places that we.
Because I don't know, 3 benches close together, or is it 2?
No, there's 3 in one or 2 places actually.
And do you like that?
Well, not necessarily. We didn't, like when we went with this group, we didn't pick those. We tried to get where we figured we'd bother everyone anyway. 2?
I think 2.
We'll take 2, not 3.
Up to 2 nearby.
To 2. Yeah, thanks. I think that gets us through 3 of 4, and now I think comes probably the biggest opportunity, in my opinion, is to address some of the things we've heard about.
No, I'm busy.
To address some of the longer term bench policy pieces and have at least a voice. Commissioner Burling?
Yeah, that's a toughie. I mean, criteria for memorial plaque and fee for installation. I think there does need, I think the duration of the bench needs to be something like 5 or 10 years, really, so that we can give other people a chance. It was 15, I know it.
Well, again, in doing the duration thing, I think I go back to, if we went to the duration thing, whatever suggests was 5 or 10 years, and so what happens is let's say we recommend that and they go there. What does that do? Where are we with timelines around? Because now we're going to grandfather everyone into that policy. Where are people along that timeline with benches? Because we're talking about it could free up half the benches.
Yes, that's right.
On the pathway. We don't know what that is right now.
Well, we also don't know what was guaranteed to them.
Right.
If they got it during that period that there was 15-year limits, that would be pretty much over.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying. And I might refer to Brandon on this issue is that if the policy is changed to go now from a perpetual bench to now a term limit bench. That, as I understand it, all of the benches now, both the ones that were time termed previously that got grandfathered into perpetuity, now the ones that were brought in new as perpetuity are now going to go to time, potentially with a policy change. And so what does that mean? And can we do that? Is that legally?
Well, I think we'd have to look up and see, I mean, we can say what we would like, and then they have to look up and see who were under that 15-year one, and can they even find the records. And
Let me make a comment here, may be appropriate.
Please.
If your commission is requesting or recommending that the bench policy is updated, there is no doubt you will see a draft of that updated bench policy for your discussion and comments at that time. Okay, so that will come back. But I think if you can set in motion the types of issues that you would suggest that they look at in the draft policy, that certainly gives them a head start rather than starting completely at random. So again, you don't need to make final determination of each issue of the bench policy today. It sounds, I get the impression there's consensus that you want the bench policy to be updated.
Correct.
I would think most people would agree it needs to be updated. Right. So what are the types of things you would like to see addressed? At what point in the future, at what point that it comes back for your commission to deliberate on and make comments on the draft?
And I think to that, I'll comment that, and not having been here when the memorial bench policy was created, and not really knowing truly the spirit of it, it sounds like from some of the public comment that we received that people that were being identified for a memorial bench were people of notoriety in our city for very specific things. And I think of the number when I think, oh, there's 37 benches, and I think like, well, I mean, it's a wonderful thing to have a family member's name put on a bench, but there's 37, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that might want to have this same thing happen. And I kind of feel like that might not be what it was originally intended for. And so in addressing an updated policy, I think that there should be something very specific criteria, and I actually think it should go to city council for a confirmation, and that really these benches, and we can still call them memorial benches, but they should memorialize very specific people in our city. That's
we go to council
to amend policy.
Yeah. Amendment or a new policy has to go to city council.
Yeah.
That's good.
I actually think that then the city council with an amended policy would be the ones that would evaluate the person that was being presented for it. I mean, you heard, I think it was it Cindy who said, the city council, her dad had passed away, and they got together. That sounds like to me what a memorial bench is in our lovely little city with a little tiny pathway. And so
it wasn't the family that was asking for it. It was two different organizations within the city for the two Lloyds.
Right. So it has a different connotation in my mind. And I think that if Planning Commission wants to take a look at the policy, that would be one of the things. In terms of the duration, if it's those kinds of people that are memorialized, people that have made a significant impact on our city, well, I think it should be in perpetuity. I don't know why we would put a timeline on that. In fact, that's a great story to be able to tell generationally down the road. So
the trouble is then you're going to be stuck with, there's somebody who really should get, or, who's really done something for the city, and there's no more benches left. So.
Well, and there's always other things, right? But I know what you're saying, and maybe that becomes just part of, like, you go to a family member that, 5 generations ago, their family member got a bench. Hey, do you mind? Can we go ahead and update it? I mean, I think that could be pushed off, I guess, as into a future conversation.
I mean, I think the challenge will be how do we move away from the existing memorialized benches? And it has to. I mean, the only way I see around that would be you put a timeline on it, and/or a timeline and the fact that we implement a maintenance fee for that bench, and people either, pony up for the maintenance or they time out. And then, then you can start, backpedaling to getting away from, a plaque-based memorial and into more of a, I don't know, you could have maybe it's a phrase that you can put on the bench.
Well,
I don't know. I think
I
the problem
think
is we've gone down this pathway.
Right. I think we want to be
back out of it?
careful. Like I think from my opinion, if the agreement's already been made with someone and they've got that bench and that plaque and there was no time frame put on it, it was in perpetuity and there wasn't a cost associated with having to maintain it, I don't think it's really fair for us to suddenly say, hey, sorry, that we're changing that plan, right?
If I may interject, I
please.
stand corrected. There has been a fee for maintenance. It was the original cost of the new bench and a 20% fee for maintenance.
Okay.
I think the fee for maintenance was very low, considering it's going to be there forever and it's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So there has been a fee that has been collected. I'm not sure if it was collected 100% of the time, but it sounds like the majority of the time there was a fee collected for maintenance.
But it's a one-time fee, is that correct?
A one-time fee for installation
So
and
it's
maintenance.
not an
the plaque.
annual maintenance fee, it's just a one-time upfront fee and it's
That's my
over.
understanding from staff. So you understand?
And Commissioner Burling, your point, well, what happens if we really focused these memorial benches on very particular people that have impacted our city and we run out of benches? Well, I look at it and I say, it took 40 years to get 37 benches in, right? Well, why can't it take just another 40 to put additional? Maybe it's a bench a year. Maybe that's when it comes up and there's that opportunity. And maybe that's why a new bench is decided upon and identified.
Then we're just going to get too many benches,
We're going to go right down the bench path.
Well,
I think there needs to be a turnover.
Down the road, yep.
Just as an FYI,
Okay.
in the hallway here, there's a big wall full of plaques, and those are the ones that were retired from the benches on the pathway.
Say that again, I didn't get that.
There's a plaque here in the city, and that I guess the names that are taken off of benches that have been retired make it onto the wall
good.
plaque.
Okay.
And they were retired under the old timeline, so even if you were like the mayor of Carmel under the old plan, if it was 15 years, that plaque would get taken off and it would be an available bench then at that point? Is that how that worked?
I think so,
Or do we
that was the plan.
That's my understanding.
So it didn't matter, whomever, doesn't matter who it was, that was not a perpetual bench, it was a 15-year term.
Except I think the understanding was that the two Lloyd benches were perpetual.
Were knocked out as exceptions to that policy.
But I mean.
It appears that those were one of the first benches to be installed way back.
So I think I'm hearing that in general, we collectively, I'm going to say as a majority, think that a duration is an important part of a future policy, right?
Correct.
That I didn't hear anyone really comment outside of that you should pay a fee, that it should be exorbitant or unreachable. I don't feel like any of that's necessary. I think whatever the actual cost is.
And that just favors the wealthy families.
Right. So, but I mean, a standard cost and however that's determined, I think that makes sense and that's nice. The criteria for the plaque itself, I think we haven't talked about that. I think we saw a couple examples while we were on the pathway. Some were, exceptionally large and others are quite small. Do you have?
I think modest, small. We don't have to define the inches, but that one we were looking at was.
I think it should be a small notation on the bench, a small little, 4x.
Most of them now are.
I think we should just have a standard size and not have it just open-ended that you provide the plaque and we'll put it on. I think that's kind of what happened is that, you have a set standard plaque size and that's what it is.
I think so.
Yeah, and to the point of when we discussed the bench designs, I don't really think that I want to walk down the path and see the exact same bench 4 benches later, right? I like kind of the quirky character of them and hope that will be continued on. But something like the plaque itself, in my opinion, should also be just modest and simple, and it doesn't need to be the primary focus of the bench itself. So, did we give you some recommendations? Are we answering? Do we have any other recommendations that we would want to put forward and make as a suggestions to the planning committee? And there's no doubt in our survey responses that many people do like the fact that they're memorialized, and many people don't.
That's right, and you know, I think one suggestion I have is the memorial plaque thing should be secondary to the beach and the beauty and all that. So, you know, it needs to not take too big a sense of importance. Obviously, the people who want it, it's very important to them, just the couple who spoke.
Want me to paraphrase that?
Yeah, let's hear what you got. It wasn't too much.
All right, so yeah, I'm starting to sweat. Okay.
Bob, sorry, can I interrupt? We're not hearing everything that Sarah's saying.
Oh, I was leaning back, yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you guys can scoot back in and speak into your microphones again, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvette.
Well, why don't you just paraphrase?
Yeah, I'll try to paraphrase. So in no particular order, what I'm hearing is that duration of the bench, okay, so the Forest and Beach Commission will be recommending to the Planning Commission that the bench policy should be updated. In that update, they should consider the duration of the benches, the time frame, perhaps including the time frame for how often they're installed. Is it once a year, once every 10 years? They should look at the criteria for who is eligible to be named on the bench, to look or to standardize the plaques to be on the benches so that they're modest in size, small, but consistent in the future. We recommend that you would want to start to move away from memorialized benches. And that a draft policy would come back to the Forest and Beach Commission for review and comment before it's, I guess it would go back to the Planning Commission, but then has to go to City Council too. So, but you want to take a look at a draft, I guess what the issue is.
Well, do we want to move away from memorial things or say that it needs to be more appropriate to what people have given Carmel?
Oh, the size, the physical size? Okay, so you're...
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would request that the physical size, whatever it is, let them review the physical size of the benches.
Okay.
Do you want that to be standardized or just to
No.
revisit
that was
that?
just the plaque size, I think was.
Just the plaque size,
right?
Not the bench size. Yeah, we got that.
Yep.
The other thing I think that needs to be in there is that the benches are the city of Carmel's and the residents' benches. So if the city wants to move a bench or change its location or make a decision about where a bench goes or doesn't go, it's the city's legal right to do that. It is not the person that's taken on that bench should not be the one making having the overall power of where that bench goes or doesn't go. It should be a city-specific, right to put that bench wherever it sees fit. And I'm not clear what that is right now, whether it's the city or it's the resident or whoever's donated for the bench that makes that call.
Well, they said that one we didn't like, you and I thought was the worst place. They said those people had chosen that spot.
Right. But it should, again, my thing is the guideline it's the city's call on that.
No, I agree with you, yeah.
Hopefully we'll have an opportunity in a draft, an updated draft.
But that was just one other point I wanted to make, that the city has overriding
I think
control.
our last...
I think that would be true regardless of whether it's said or not, but we want to make it darn clear that...
Transparent to anyone that wants a bench, that the city is in control.
It should be on the application form itself as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the last piece was just the fees, that the fees were commensurate with the actual costs.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
We're not
and apparently we do have a standardized plaque size in the policy or in the application today.
Great.
But over time, as we saw today, the plaque sizes have varied greatly.
Sure.
But we want to make sure that it's memorialized in the new bench policy, and that's what stays consistent for forever. a long time.
Yeah, I think we did it.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah? Feel like we've
call it good and move on?
hopefully represented
I think-
well, and recognizing that it's an ongoing consideration, and we're
Okay.
happy to partner with the planning commission here and provide the input that we could, so.
Okay, I'll be working with the planning director, and perhaps we'll come back next week or next month with a final recommendation, more formal. Okay, here's what you guys agreed to, dot the i's, cross the t's perhaps, and then that will be the formal transfer.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. So we'll continue then with orders of business. The city's foresters monthly report for June 2022. It's all yours, Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, we're welcoming 2 new staff members to the team. Mike Wood is one of our maintenance workers. He'll be working on our parks and forestry crew. And Tom Ford, who's joining us today, is our new management analyst that you met via Zoom at the last meeting. So, on with the news. We've been eliminating the rodents from Devendorf Park. So far, we've gotten 3 gophers and a mole. So hopefully I'll have a new update coming soon this week. We're awarding the contract for the Urban Forest Master Plan to Davey Resource Group. They were selected through a request for qualifications process for professional services. Great firm. They work nationally. Really, really top-notch group of consultants to work with. The budget for this coming fiscal year was approved, and the budget has been restored to a pre-pandemic level, which is great. So that allows us to contract out some of our day-to-day tasks to free up more staff for more important activities. That approved budget does not include the grant from CAL FIRE for the master plan. We, of course, pushed out the bench survey. We did a deep clean on First Murphy Park and made some improvements. The big one, I think, is the Pocket Park on the northwest corner of Monteverde and Ocean. Probably didn't even realize there was a pocket park there. It was completely engulfed in a bush. So now it's a nice open seating area.
On Monteverde and what?
Ocean.
On Ocean.
There's a bench there and everything.
And a map and a new map display case?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. You mean where the Lobos Lodge is?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. All right. I'm pushing the button, Sebastian, and the screen's not coming back up from the laptop. Okay. Well, we'll just skip the graphs and tables then. You have them in your packet anyways. So our removals are just trending as they typically do. It seems as though more and more lots that we're permitting removals on are meeting the density requirements already. So not a lot of new trees have been required. Compiling for the whole year so far, we're at 66 permitted removals, which is on a much slower pace than 2021. So we're going to come in way below that, which is nice. We're requiring as many upper and lower canopy trees. They're pretty equal. The work that is in-house, okay, maybe we're coming back up, maybe not. All right, we had a huge jump in how much pruning work we've done. You saw that last month. So we're continuing on with our in-house crew now. Let's see, the big administrative tasks for this month again, for June, was the inspections. They seem to be on track with about an average of 50 a month. We did have a slight jump in permits coming in. And the one thing I wanted to show you that we visited earlier in our tour was the improved edging around the planting bed at 13th and Scenic. Carmel Cares is piloting some new stone and a new arrangement with the new installation technique. And I would really like to show you that photo. Let's try it again. Oh yeah, I think we're getting there. We're not getting there. It's still just kind of blue. All right, just blue. All right, well, we saw it in person, and Dale was going to say a few words about how this project came about and what the intent is. Dale, are you there?
Can you go back to the
Yes, I
Zoom
am.
screen?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. That was quite a meeting so far, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for your efforts on that discussion. Carmel Care started our relationship with the city's Public Works Department exactly 2 years ago tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And that's pretty exciting milestone. It's exciting for Carmel Cares to be working with the city for the first time when they have budget dollars, and we look forward to dovetailing in with all the new resources that Sarah's team will soon have, both internal and external. As we get closer to getting Scenic irrigation system working, which uses the city's free non-potable water supply, as we get it working, we decided to do a small cleanup of the 13th Avenue median island to look at some potential landscaping options and get public comments. One of the issues with landscaping on the pathway is that there are no useful barriers to prevent wood chips from sloughing off, which creates quite a mess and potential slipping hazards. And the entire length of the pathway is currently that way. We did a temporary soft prototype using some fairly thin Carmel stone we already had, some mulch we had left over from a forest theater project, and we planted a sampling of some gopher basketed drought-tolerant plants that we thought would do well. The results have proven to be universally popular with the passersby, and the plants have done remarkably well. As a next step, Shirley Moon had our stonemasons do a 5-foot sample of a more permanent solution. Mounted in concrete, this granite, which matches the other golden granite used in the vicinity, would last at least a generation. The plan would be to complete this median, sponsored by a Carmel Cares donor, and then investigate the other strategic locations along the pathway to do the same. As Shirley says, it would create some drama, something to encourage you to walk a little further and to look forward to around the next bend in the pathway. This may be an opportunity for others to become legacy sponsors of these gardens as well. Thank you for your interest in this project, and we look forward to your comments and suggestions.
Thanks, Dale.
All right, do you have any questions on the forester's report?
Commissioners?
Comments? All righty.
I think that this prototype that we got to go down and see, I'm really impressed with the results, and I look forward to seeing it completed and then hopefully replicated. So it's exciting.
The only question I had, Sarah, can I have one question for you? Is where are we on the project with just the up Ocean Avenue cleanup?
Yeah, so right now I'm waiting to release an on-call landscape contract bid. So some of those extra dollars and downtown beautification dollars as well, I can bring in a contractor to install the irrigation. We already have all the parts and all the fun stuff. We just don't have the manpower to get it in the ground right now. So as soon as I'm able to get that contract through and awarded, that'll be the first project out of the gate.
Well, since we got to ask extra questions, I'll ask one more too. Since you talked about the little park right there at Monteverde and Ocean, on 2nd Avenue where North Casanova kind of meets it, which is a walking path, that area I've seen some of your tree workers come through and plant, and then it just kind of gets left. And it looks to me like it'd be a really fantastic little park in a way, just a place that people might walk up 2nd and want to sit down and look out into Pescadero Canyon. And I'm wondering if we might have the resources at some point to just maintain it a little bit better, and perhaps it could be a great place for a bench. But anyway.
We actually did that today. Nope, yesterday. We did it
the
yesterday.
Foxtails and some weeds.
He ran the street yesterday with a weed eater. I saw him, but and it's just a little bit further up. And just as a thought, it's another nice little pocket that I think sometimes gets forgotten. So
yeah,
Anyway.
We'll add it to the list.
Got it. Perfect. Well, then our last order of business will be our Public Work Director's monthly report for June 2022. Take it away.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First has to do with the City Council actions related to forestry, beach, parks and beach issues. There's only one action to mention. This goes back to the June meeting. Council approved a lighting box truss system for the Forest Theater stage for $54,000. So we're working on the engineering calculations. It's been manufactured, so it should be up and installed fairly soon. Because the stage perhaps is not so much a forest, parks, and beach issue, it's a park. Forest Theater is a park, so just keep you in the loop. That's all I had there for forestry, parks, and beach-related capital projects. Last night, City Council awarded a professional services agreement with a company called Wallace Group to service our project management, to provide project management services on behalf of the city. We still don't have a project manager in-house, but we're now in the process of hiring multiple project management consultants to allow us to go forward with our pretty aggressive capital improvement program and our backlog of projects. One of the projects that we will be kicking off actually on Tuesday morning under the Wallace contract is at Mission Trails Nature Preserve. We have that well, the water well that's going to be abandoned. There's also that above ground steel tank, I think it's 10,000 gallon steel tank, and the pump house that's been inactive for many years. So the project will be to design the removal of all that and to abandon the well, and to do the construction and then restore, reseed it and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that project is now, it was a carryover project from last year. We just didn't have any resources to do it. So now we're going forward with that. The Climate Committee, so at the last week, the Climate Committee had a special meeting. They adopted the Climate Action Plan and the Climate Adaptation Plan. That was the first main goal of the Climate Committee in the first place. So they prepared and completed those two plans. Those plans will go to the City Council for the Council to adopt formally on August the 2nd. So that phase of the project is done. That kind of ties into one of the capital improvement plans, which is the coastal engineering study, which I know Commissioner Sowers is very much concerned about, and also the beach sand study. The council requested the Climate Committee to oversee that particular project. So staff and we're working with, we went through a selection process. This project is pretty complex, and there's not one consultant that does all the parts. It's coastal engineering, there's geotechnical, there's what's the ocean rise? What's it called? Sea level rise. Ocean rise, sea level, something's rising. And the impacts on the beach, the impacts on the North Dunes, the impacts on the parking lot, all that kind of stuff. So we have a conglomeration of firms that are now trying to work together to develop a more detailed project-specific proposal. We've met with some really high-tech people, impressive group. So now we're trying to formulate a package. We'll take that information to the Climate Committee for their blessing, go to the City Council to approve the contract. But one of the first things they'll be doing is presenting to the Forest and Beach Commission, here's what they're doing. Okay, so that's coming, but it's off and running, but it's complicated. And it's only a year late for part of it.
It's important too.
It is very important. What else on the Climate Committee? Yeah, I kind of covered that. Okay. Volunteer organizations, I think we talked about Carmel Cares quite a bit. One other thing, though, we haven't discussed yet is wanted to thank Dale and Carmel Cares, who have been persistent, and rightfully so, to want to improve the beach fire regulation signs. Personally, I gave up on it about 2 years ago.
Gee, there's some new signs out.
There are brand new signs.
Yeah.
The prior signs were somewhat outdated, somewhat inconsistent, somewhat unenforceable. The police had one standard of enforcement. The beach fire pilot project had different requirements. So it was kind of a mess. And that's why I gave up, to be quite honest. Dale persevered. He worked with police. He worked with the planning department. Brandon also was very helpful. They got the new signs wording where everyone was satisfied about all the requirements. We updated our website so that it complies as well. So everything's in compliance. And they put out the signs right before the 4th of July weekend. So we thank Dale for doing that. And I think they're converting it from the temporary placement into the permanent signs, but that will happen eventually. And then miscellaneous forest, parks, and beach-related items. Oh, this is kind of follow-up from the Forest and Beach Commission of last month. We went to the Forest Hill Park. There was a request to look at that the play area for the kids, the south of the bathroom, north of the play structure site. So we did take a look at it, we investigated it. It is a drainage swale, so we can't fill it in and mound it up, unfortunately. But certainly it's rough, there's not potholes because it's not asphalt, but it's yeah, it needs work. So we were gonna wait until the fall, we're gonna rough it all out, flatten it out, reseed it, keep the kids off of temporarily in the, I guess, fall, winter, and then by next spring, hopefully there'll be a nice level playing field with new grass and that type of thing. Okay, so
Not like traditional turf. We'll use drought tolerant bunch
Good.
grasses so it'll be low impact, but it's not something that will be irrigated. It'll just be flat in a surface to play on.
Nice.
okay.
That's good.
Next thing is some staffing update. We already talked about Tom Ford. I am tickled pink that Tom is on board, helping the forestry. There's a ton of work to be done. So Tom keeps showing up, which is really courageous of him. So we thank him for that. I wanted to put a shout out to Yvette Oblander, who's our commission secretary. If you recall, she was the Public Works administrative coordinator for a number of years. At COVID, we had to let her go, which was truly devastating, especially to me. She came back to us working in City Hall full-time, but only 25% of her time, plus or minus, was help Public Works. So up until a couple months ago, we had 0.5 administrative support people in Public Works. We had a year and a half of zero, or over a year of zero administrative help. Then we got up to 0.25. Effective Monday, Yvette will be transitioning back to full-time in Public Works and physically housed in Public Works. Not sure exactly what day, over the next couple of weeks. So I wanted the minutes to reflect that I am absolutely thrilled. Hallelujah, hip hip hooray, yippee, woo-ha, woo-ha.
Can you spell that, Bob?
And so, bigger pictures, we now have an administrative analyst in Public Works. We have an administrative environmental technician in Public Works, and we'll have a full-time administrative coordinator in Public Works. Maybe we can keep up with the work, because for a year and a half, we had zero of those three. So hallelujah, help is on its way. In addition, we're doing a promotional opportunity from a maintenance worker to a senior maintenance worker for forestry. So that process is in the works. We also have posted to backfill whoever that maintenance worker that gets promoted to senior. We've already posted to backfill the maintenance worker in forestry. Okay, so help is on the way in the field and in the office. 2, 3. Wanted to thank Me Earth students, volunteers who removed invasive species at the North Dunes Habitat Restoration Area. I think it was mid-June. This has to do with the beach. We put out a public service announcement on TV regarding proper recycling to protect Carmel Beach, and it will be aired on local television stations if you happen to see that. We did one about a year and a half ago. You see little kids picking up styrofoam cups or whatever, not beer bottles, but bottles. And like, wow, where do I put this? Do I put this in the garbage? Do I put this in recycling? So we kind of updated a little bit different. But again, it says at the end, protect Carmel Beach, love Carmel Beach and protect it, or something to that effect. We had the original vendor who did the unique water fountain at Piccadilly Park come in and restore it and upgrade it so that it won't burn out the pump again. The PAC Rep Theater, going back to Forest Theater, PAC Rep Theater requested us to take a look at propane. We have these 2 fire pits. We can't do fires anymore because of potential fire danger and embers and things like that. So then we looked at natural gas, which could happen, but it's a big project. We have to plumb in a new gas line. It's cost, and it's a historic structure, so we kind of put that on the shelf. So more recently, we looked at propane tanks, whether it's portable or a big, propane tank in the side plumbed up to those things. Because the ambience would be really nice to have the fires again safely, but our fire chief Panholzer really said, kind of talked us out of it. So we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be going back to the natural gas project, maybe next fiscal year in the capital improvement program budget, we'll put in for that. So it's at least a year off for that to happen. And that's it. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commission?
So I'm gonna just give my every quarter I ask this question. How are we coming along with legal counsel on the Forest and Beaches
authority?
It's
on the list of projects.
Okay.
So as a part of the Urban Forest Master Plan,
That's true.
we're gonna get a red line of the code and what doesn't make sense and what does make sense. So as part of that master planning process, we'll update things like that.
And actually, that came from the city council. When we talked to the council about strategic initiatives, one of the projects was to do the tree and shrub ordinance update, because there's 2 of them now and they're in conflict. So we need to do that. We also need to do the forest management plan. We were going to do the ordinance first, then the forest management plan. However, the forest management plan will no doubt influence what's in the ordinance. So council decided, let's hold off on the ordinance, which includes the authority details, and let's do the forest management plan, which the forester just mentioned. We have Davey, so now we go to contract in August the 2nd, hopefully, all goes well. And after that management plan is completed, or somewhere along the way, then we can gear back up. We do have a draft of the tree and shrub ordinance, so it was started and it was extensive rewrite, but it's kind of put on the shelf. It's on a list.
Okay.
So,
any other questions from the commission? Is there any question or comment from public?
Yes, absolutely. Or for either report.
For either report, thank you. I didn't see any hands, can't see anything on my screen, so I'm not really sure. I'm gonna go with, let's see. I don't see anyone wanting to, so with that in mind, as we get to our adjournment, any future agenda items that you'd like to add on from the commission? Is there anything that you'd see?
August is going to be busy with rulings, just FYI.
With rulings? Okay.
Right. We also have
rulings, so things we'll be looking at.
Our annual paving project which was almost done before COVID hit. It's back. It's going. If you recall, we talked about this a couple of years back, if you were there. Landscape meeting islands on San Carlos between, I think, 11th and 13th. So there was an initial design to have a couple of big islands landscape. We had a public meeting. We got beat up. Then we revised it to have a couple of little islands, and that's what has been put on hold. So now that we have project management consultants, we're gearing back up. So we'll hopefully come back in the August meeting to kind of talk.
I simply hope that they will pay attention to what the local trucker has said and, you know, how impossible it'll be if there's even little ones.
Right. You know, the civil engineer who designed the project did consider truck turn movements and all that kind of stuff.
Of money.
Right. Well, we can't make everyone happy, but we did consider the legal requirements. So that will come back in August, hopefully.
JC?
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, I'm not sure if I need to notice from the public at this point about the potential of putting the Forest Theater Rotary project on the agenda. It may be necessary.
Yes, thank you, Dale. I was supposed to do that. You want to talk about Forest Theater and there was another thing.
Oh, there are many. Those are the ones that will I think the Forest and Beach Commission would be most happy to hear about and also give their input to us.
Oh, that's right. It included the picnic tables as part of that.
The picnic tables as well as the pollinator-friendly plantings, which I'll have the plan on Monday.
Good. Yeah, that would be a fantastic topic, and maybe extraordinary business.
Okay, extraordinary business. The only other thing I might like to add, if we can get it on, is since it's been all this bench conversation, this bench installations over at the volleyball courts, I think we might be able to drive some funding out of the volleyball community, and if it can be something that we discuss and think that would be appropriate, I'd like to see it on the agenda, at least for that, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Good idea.
With that and nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. We did it.
10 minutes early, Sarah.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have an enjoyable evening.
Yeah.